political prisoners. Free all political prisoners. Free all political prisoners. Build Jericho. I would just say that I usually don't speak from a written statement. But what we are trying to do today is so important, I didn't want to get emotional. I wanted to be practical about what we have to do to make our amnesty and freedom for political prisoners a reality in this country. So I'm going to read this statement today. Bear with me. At the very beginning of this program, you were told by Brother Herman Ferguson, let me just say, this Brother Michael Africa is with me here because he was born in prison. He was born in prison. He's a child of two of the Move 9. Now, I can't get used to saying Move 8. But he was 3 days after he was born, he stayed in prison, and he has never been held by his family on the outside of prison. So to me, this is my child. This is our child. On the move. And we're going to end this program today with him, we're going to follow up me with him doing what I love what he does best. Just because it's legal, don't make it right. At the very beginning of this program, you were told by Brother Herman Ferguson of the New African Liberation Front what Jericho 98 is. It's not just a demonstration at the White House. It's the beginning of a new commitment to our political prisoners and prisoners of war. Then, in a statement from Brother and political prisoner Jalil Muntagin, you're encouraged to go on from Jericho to create a new Jerusalem. And if you haven't heard the statement, get a copy of the Jericho Movement newspaper, and the statement's in there. A metaphor to go on from Jericho to build a new Jerusalem. A metaphor I take to mean leave Jericho today with a commitment to do the work to make this idea of tearing down the walls and freeing our political prisoners a reality. 18 months ago, the Provisional Government Republic of New Africa and the New African Liberation Front began this process that has brought us here today. During the course of the last 18 months, we reached out to groups and formations all across the country and around the world to support us in this campaign, to come together to build a movement to demand recognition and amnesty for our political prisoners. We reached out to the National Committee to Free Puerto Rican Prisoners of War, the International Concern Families and Friends of Amir Abu Jamal, the National Conference of Black Lawyers, Refuse and Resist, the Not on the Guest List Coalition, Asians from Amir, the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee, Interfaith Prisoners of Conscience Project, MOVE, the Anarchist Black Cross Network, and other organizations from all across the country and other ethnic persuasions. We reached out to all the defense committees for political prisoners and to put out a call to all the revolutionaries and activist organizations. We did this because we knew that this time we had to put aside our differences and come together, as Malcolm said, on the basis of what we had in common. What we have in common is a common enemy in a common struggle. The common enemy being the racist, sexist, colonialist, imperialist, capitalist system of the United States of America. A system that promotes and supports police brutality and murder of people of color and other oppressed people. A system that promotes property value over human lives and dignity. A system that promotes the dollar profit over the rights of the people to decent housing, education, and employment. A system that utilizes racism as a tool to keep us divided and fighting amongst ourselves, and as a means of justifying the continued inhuman acts perpetrated against people of African descent in this country. A system that invades third world underprivileged countries and colonizes them, utilizing their young for cannon fodder in their wars of aggression, and their land as dumping grounds for their waste. Our common struggle is against the enemy that perpetuates these evils. Our common struggle is against the enemy that utilizes a propaganda war to criminalize our struggles, to demonize us, to make the world believe that our struggles are not just struggles, and the captured combatants, the freedom fighters, the captured comrades are not political prisoners, but criminals. Jericho Article 98 is designed to take away the United States' ability to define our struggle for us, but by denying our political prisoners exist inside the prisons and jails of the United States. With the show of force in numbers here today, we are saying to the government of the United States, we will no longer be silent while you hold our political prisoners within your prisons. Some of them have been in your prisons for over 30 years, while we have allowed you to take away your denial of their existence, to get away with your denial of their existence, and your criminalization of our struggle, and the murder of political prisoners like Ahmed Evans, Bobby Garcia, George Jackson, and Merle Austin Africa. We're serving notice that the silence ends today. 30 years is 29 years and 364 days too long. But by our presence here today, we're saying to the government of the United States, we are well aware that you've gotten away with it this long, because we didn't hold up our end of the struggle. But we are making a new commitment to our political prisoners and to the struggle. We are making a new commitment to support our political prisoners and prisoners of war. The form that the support for our political prisoners and prisoners of war will take has to be on many different levels. I don't want to just talk on a philosophical level or throw angry words at the White House, but I want to get down and dirty and factual right here. This Jericho March is not just a feel-good session. When we leave this place today, we have to go back to our various cities and states and begin to do the real hard day-to-day work of making Jericho a reality. We talked about educating our communities and the world to the existence of political prisoners and prisoners of war in the United States. Over the last 18 months, we've been doing that, and we've done a monumental job so far, but the work has to continue. We cannot let the education campaign that we've begun stop. We have to step up the pace. We still have a job to do in this area. We talked about putting a face on the political prisoners, who in many cases do not and have not been receiving visits, who are spending years in isolation, does not have commissary, etc., and have been cut off from their families and friends. We have to make contact and make sure that they receive these basic needs that let them know that they are not alone and forgotten. These are our freedom fighters, and it's up to us to take care of them. We talk about recognition as political prisoners and prisoners of war. The United States of America continues to deny the existence of these political prisoners and prisoners of war. We have to continue this struggle for recognition into the international arena, as Geronimo has said. We have to continue to raise the issue. We have to put together an organized force whose work for the next year will be to work in the various international arenas, pushing the fact that political prisoners exist in this country. We have to make it so that every time the United States government raises the issue of human rights violations and the treatment of dissenters anywhere in the world and calls for the release of political prisoners, they are met by the question, what about the political prisoners in your jail, America? We talked about amnesty for our political prisoners. Well, amnesty is not going to be won in one day with one march. We have to work to make this amnesty campaign real. We have to be in it for the long haul. When we go back to wherever we came from, we have to continue to work for recognition and amnesty for our political prisoners. Over and over again, the political prisoners have said that for the first time in forever, they can see a glimmer of light at the end of a tunnel, because we have begun to understand that support for our political prisoners are an integral part of the struggle. That a movement that doesn't support its captured combatants, its freedom fighters, its political prisoners, and prisoners of war is a sham movement. Finally, we talked about the conditions of confinement of our political prisoners and prisoners of war. Without lawyers to intervene in how the state subjects them to cruel and inhuman punishment, i.e., for example, the recent designation of no human contact assigned to Sekou Odinga, or the inadequate medical care that political prisoners across the board like Oscar Lopez Rivera, Marilyn Buck, Mutulu Shakur, Bashir Ahmed, and many, many others are facing daily. Without lawyers to do to challenge their convictions, their lengthy sentences, and the conditions of their confinement, our political prisoners are left at the mercy of our enemy. We have to put together the resources, both human and financial, to deal with supplying lawyers to our political prisoners.
Right.
So what exactly are we saying? Jericho, over the next year and longer, will address the issues of, one, recognition for our political prisoners and prisoners of war. We want you to go back to your communities and either join with the work of your local Jericho organizing committee, and if one does not exist, create one to educate people in your area about political prisoners. Two, visit, send commissary to, and otherwise support political prisoners. We want you to either adopt a political prisoner or support other efforts to give material aid to our political prisoners in the form of visits, either assisting the families to visits or making sure that their basic needs are met. Three, amnesty for political prisoners. We need to continue to press the amnesty question in all the different arenas. Jericho has to continue to push this issue. Over the next year, the Jericho organizing committees and the organizations who have endorsed the work of Jericho must be prepared to follow through. The attorneys that have been assigned to do this work in conjunction with the organizing committees have to perfect the strategy and move it forward.
Right.
Four, the National Legal Defense Fund. No matter how we approach it, without the financial component, without this financial component, we will not do justice to the issue of support for our political prisoners. Over the last 30 years, we have gone through an enormous amount of money, and we have not moved any closer to freedom for the vast majority of our political prisoners. We need to form a National Legal Defense Fund for our political prisoners and prisoners of war. To do this, we need to keep up the fundraising to build this fund. We need to build this fund so that we can get lawyers on the case and on the scene as soon as they're needed. Oftentimes, the delay in making legal assistance available means the difference in life and death for our political prisoners. We also need to organize and politicize students coming out of law schools to take up this issue. Building a cadre of lawyers we can trust and depend on to advocate on behalf of our political prisoners. Our new commitment to our political prisoners has to be rooted in concrete work on their behalf. These political prisoners didn't come out of a vacuum, but are out of our struggles for freedom, independence, and self-determination. These struggles have not been won and continue. Therefore, the probability of new political prisoners remain. Our reaffirming our commitment to our political prisoners through building this Jericho movement institutionalizes our political prisoners, the support for our political prisoners. If we are to be victorious in our struggles, we have to begin to approach our struggle in a more professional manner and not the hit and miss way we have done in the past. We have served notice on the seat of government of the United States today that we will no longer allow the silence around the issue of political prisoners to continue. Now we have to go back and show by our actions that we are prepared to do just what it takes to make the dismantling of the walls of Jericho a reality. Joshua had determination and dedication it took to keep attacking the walls of Jericho until they fell. It took Joshua marching around those walls 7 times. We must be of no less determination and dedication to winning recognition and amnesty for our political prisoners. Remember Merle, Austin, Africa? Free all political prisoners and prisoners of war and build Jericho.
That's right.